I'm Mark Golub, and in the news, Operation Preventive Edge. Israel's attempt to stop the rocket barrage from Gaza, which is part of an assault on the Jewish state by Hamas and a number of other Islamic jihadist terrorist groups. And today at the United Nations, top officials including Ban Ki-moon and Israeli Ambassador Ron Prosor met to discuss the current Israeli-Palestinian crisis. And to brief us on that meeting, I'm pleased to have on our phones right now a senior diplomat in the Israeli UN delegation, Yotam Goren. Shalom, Yotam. Thank you for joining us.
Shalom, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
So give us a sense, what happened today at that meeting?
Mark, today the Security Council had a special meeting on the situation in Israel. The Secretary General briefed on the situation, and Ambassador Prosor called for the condemnation, unequivocally condemnation of the Hamas. It was very important for us to use this platform to show the world and to tell the world what is really going on. The fact that every 10 minutes a rocket is falling on the Jewish community in Israeli city across the country from Beersheba to Tel Aviv. It was important for the ambassador to really explain in real terms what it means when you have 15 seconds to find a shelter, what that means for 3.5 million Israelis. At any given second, a rocket can fall nearby. So that was a crucial and important message that we delivered, that the Ambassador Prosor delivered today, this morning, at the Security Council.
Excellent. You know, Yotam, this is not the first time Israel has experienced this kind of rocket barrage, and for years Sderot lived with this 15 seconds of warning situation. Is it your sense that the members of the Security Council were hearing this for the first time, or hearing it in a different way for the first time?
Well, Mark, I think that Israel has been talking about this. This is not the first time we've discussed this. We've showed evidence and talked and warned about the growing missile and rocket threat from the Gaza Strip. Only recently, a ship carrying very long-range missiles in the close sea was apprehended with missiles produced in Syria and brought in by Iran. We've been talking about this.
Yes.
The Council knows, but nothing has been done. No condemnation of Hamas, even though Hamas is internationally recognized as a terror organization. So you can't say there was no warning that this threat is growing. And today we're dealing with a terror organization with an arsenal of 12,000 rockets.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the results. 15 seconds.
Yes.
Find shelter.
Yes. We have become accustomed here in the Jewish community to be disappointed in the United Nations of late. There seems to be a very significant anti-Israel bias at the UN. Yotam, do you feel in any way the events of the last few days, if not the last few weeks, have created a shift in attitude or mood towards Israel at the United Nations?
Well, Mark, I would venture to say that it's too early to call. As far as we've seen evidence by actions yet, there hasn't been much of a shift. Where our job here as Israeli diplomats is to plead our case, to make our case in unequivocal terms, and to point out very clearly that fighting terror, it doesn't matter the location. With us, it's Hamas and Hezbollah. In other countries, it goes by a different name. But, you know, from Abuja to Fallujah, the world is dealing with a scourge of terrorism, whether it's Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, or Hamas. And we're out there, when you're fighting terror, you're standing up with Israel, you're standing up against terror. And that's really the message that we're trying to tell the global community, and especially here at the UN.
Mm-hmm. Now, Yotam, you said you would have loved to have seen a UN resolution come out condemning Hamas. I assume that did not happen or has not happened yet, correct?
Well, we have not seen an unequivocal condemnation of Hamas. We've not seen a condemnation, a clear condemnation by the world community of rocket fire. And this is critical. And we think it's obvious it should be done. because that sends a very clear message that terrorism should not be tolerated, will not be tolerated. And we're working hard for that.
Okay. The United States has designated Hamas a terrorist organization. Has the UN done the same thing?
No.
Okay.
The UN is not. No.
Okay. I'm watching. Now I'm just going to ask you a personal question, Yotam. I'm watching American television this past couple of days, and I am seeing a different nomenclature. Different words are now being used to describe Hamas. Instead of calling it, calling the people involved with Hamas terrorists, they're now called Hamas militants and almost soldiers. Does that in any way undercut what you and Ambassador Prosor are trying to convey, that we're dealing here with a serious terrorist threat that, as you say, links tentacles with other terrorist groups all over the world?
Well, sure. I mean, when you describe a terrorist threat as what you say and give it a different meaning, then sure it has an effect. But it's important to note that Israel is working with its friends and allies to combat this and to really spread the word, through evidence, through diplomatic channels, that this is a real threat, not just to us, but the threat of terrorism is a global threat. And the U.S. has recognized Hamas as a terrorist organization. The EU has recognized Hamas as a terrorist organization. Canada, as well as Egypt, by the way. And this is an important message and something that we will continue to push forward.
Absolutely. Yotam, I appreciate a moment of your time. We will talk to you often as you keep us up to date with things that are affecting Israel from the United Nations. Kol tuv v'hatzlacha. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Mark. Take care. Thank you very much.
You too. Yotam Goren, the senior diplomat in the Israeli UN delegation. On our phones right now, a friend you know well from Shalom TV, Ken Bob, president of the Progressive Zionist organization Ameinu. Bob, thank you for Ken, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Ken, I'm very anxious to hear your take on everything that's transpired, especially over the last couple of days with Operation Preventive Edge. What's your take on this conflict now as it's playing out between Gaza and Israel?
First of all, I should mention, Mark, that I actually landed here this morning from Israel. I was in Israel for 3 weeks for a collection of meetings, visiting my children who live there, and a wedding. And the wedding I was at Tuesday night was actually interrupted by a siren, and we all found ourselves in the shelter. So I've been not only observing it, but experiencing it personally.
Wow. That's a wow. Okay, so as someone who has been there firsthand, what do you feel?
Look, I think that, first of all, it's absolutely essential that the Israeli army, Tzahal, defend Israel and protect its citizens from rocket attacks. So that's the first thing, and I think that that's an across-the-board feeling, both in Israel and for Israel supporters in the American Jewish community. I think that if you look a little bit deeper here, I think we have to look at a situation and try to compare also to previous times when Israel has tried to create a deterrence with Hamas. That I'm going to quote here Yitzhak Herzog, the leader of the Israeli opposition. He was asked this week on television a number of times, how he would deal with the situation, and he said, "I would give a harsh blow to Hamas and travel to Ramallah and speak to the Palestinian President Abbas." And I think what's behind that statement is that this is going on right now. Israel's going to get a lot less credit from its allies around the world, be it in Europe or in the United States, than in previous times. So I think that Israel is in a very difficult situation here because while it certainly has every right and will defend its citizens against these rocket attacks, it's not going to get a lot of credit around the world because there is no diplomatic process going on.
By the way, I'm not an expert enough to know the extent to which the concern you have will come to pass. I only know that people are telling me, and I want to hear, Ken, what you think. People are telling me that in this particular instance, in Europe, in Scandinavian countries, here in the United States, it seems more obvious that Israel here is a victim and that there is greater support, not less support, for the state of Israel than there has been in other similar circumstances. And again, Operation Cast Lead seems like it was just yesterday. This is not the first time Israel's had to deal with Gaza. It may not be the last. But the people who are reporting to me, and I don't know better than what I hear from people who are telling me, is that in this instance, Israel has been receiving quite a good deal of support. And I'm wondering whether you experienced or you've heard or you've read a different kind of reaction.
Well, one source I'll go to is someone who's very familiar to your viewers, and that's former Ambassador Michael Oren. Wednesday morning, he was on the morning talk shows saying essentially what I'm telling you now, which is that Israel is receiving support now, but as the conflict goes on and as more civilian deaths are reported, he thinks, and I agree with him, that Israel will receive a diminishing amount of support from the same capitals you mentioned. People, that's what I'm saying. At the beginning of a situation like this, people will say, absolutely, Israel has to defend itself. But as more civilian deaths are reported, it's inevitable. And again, as we all know, it's because the Hamas terrorists placed themselves around civilians in Gaza. But there's only so much that the Israeli Air Force can do to avoid these situations, and they make mistakes. When I was in Israel, the last day I was in Israel, they publicly apologized for killing an innocent family. So, unfortunately, because of the nature of guerrilla warfare, this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. But what Michael Oren is suggesting, others suggesting, is that the world actually will lose patience at a certain point. And so I think that the Sahel will be able to do the best they can, but without, again, a diplomatic element to this, I think we're going to, as you say, we're going to find ourselves back in there again.
Okay. Are you saying that what you're hoping for now is that Israel find a way to initiate a diplomatic relationship and maybe restart the peace process? Or are you saying the criticism you're worried about for Israel will occur because there was no peace process in place when the 3 teenage Israelis were kidnapped and everything has sort of fallen apart ever since then?
Well, I'm saying both. I mean, you've helped me explain that because I think both are absolutely true. I think that because there is no peace process, there's going to be less sympathy, but also I think there's an opportunity now. People always say, oh, how can there be an opportunity if you're being attacked by Hamas? Precisely because the result of this will be a weaker Hamas. I think this also will actually strengthen Abbas's hand. I don't want to, speak on behalf of the Palestinian president, but I think, again, your viewers are well aware of the ongoing, tension between Hamas and Fatah, even when they try to put together a unity government, and we're not talking about that today, certainly. But I think that with a weakened Hamas, it gives Abbas even more opportunity. And I heard him speak on Tuesday at a conference where he said, I am prepared at any time to take a 3-month period and really sit with Prime Minister Netanyahu and try to figure out borders. I don't know if Netanyahu will take the opportunity, but this could be an opportunity to renew the talks.
Well, you have been one of the most articulate people we've had on Shalom TV, trying to present the opportunity Israel has from your perspective to make peace with the Palestinians. And you and I have disagreed a little bit before. I obviously hope you're right. I would love to feel that in some way all of the events here, as painful as they are, will lead to something of a positive nature. And maybe it would bring the Palestinians and the Israelis together and Abbas and Netanyahu together across a table. When I hear Abbas say that what Israel is doing in Gaza now is tantamount to what Nazis did at Auschwitz, it worries me more than it worries you that there is not a mindset that Abbas has that would make peace make it easy to go forward. And for me, Ken, the Hamas actions in Gaza now illustrate the extent to which, as long as Hamas is part of this game, it's going to be impossible to move forward. But, please, one more thought from you.
Sure. I think that it is hard sometimes to understand how the chess pieces move around. The only thing I would share with you, Mark, is that Abbas has been under tremendous criticism for his cooperation with the Israelis in the search for the killers of the Israeli teens and in helping in this clampdown on Hamas on the West Bank. So, his popularity is actually quite low right now. And I haven't seen the exact quote that you mentioned, and I'm sorry to hear that, but I think that some of this is for PR purposes. But if you ask again the security officials, they're thrilled with the Palestinian cooperation in the West Bank in the last few weeks.
All right, I know this. One of the reasons why I always want you on Shalom TV is that you bring I want to use the word balanced. What I mean by that is you have been championing the cause of a two-state solution and a peace between Israel and the Palestinians. No matter what happens, you're able to find a positive from it. And I'm not saying that in any negative sense at all. I think it's very important to have a voice like yours. We will see what happens in the next, week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. And then, Ken, I continue to want to reach out to you and have you bring your perspective to Shalom TV.
I look forward to it, Mark, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you very much. Ken Bob, president of the Progressive Zionist organization, Ameinu. We have one more guest for you on this edition of In the News. A pleasure to welcome the publisher of The Jewish Voice, David Ben Hooren. David, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, David, I first want to ask you the kind of question I've asked other people. You've been watching this. The Jewish Voice has been addressing this. What is your overall sense of where Operation Preventive Edge is going now?
Well, considering that 80% of the population in Israel is under the threat of missiles, Bibi has no choice. And listen to what I'm telling you again. Bibi has no choice but to commit a ground troop and to do this job once and for all. He cannot go on allowing the terrorists to shoot missiles at cities like Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and even Haifa. I predict that if Bibi is not going to go along with it, this government is going to fall.
Really? You would be surprised if Israel does not send ground troops into Gaza, correct?
It does not make sense. All the indications are that Bibi is going to send troops to crush them once and for all. And the situation never been better. Egypt is not in the picture. Iran is not in the picture. Turkey is not in the picture. Hamas has no support. Hamas is on their own. What you see now is the loss of Hamas. I believe in the next few weeks, you're going to hear, all we're going to get is good news. Israel is going to crush them. There's no question in my mind.
Very interesting. I want you to react to some things that I've heard. I'd love to get your sense of it. I've heard people say to me, David, that Netanyahu is in a very, very tricky situation because if he sends ground troops into Gaza, there will be serious Israeli casualties and deaths. Not even to mention the fact that there will be Palestinian civilian deaths, which the Palestinians will play up enormously in the world media. So that there are three very good reasons for Netanyahu to do everything he can to avoid going into Gaza. Israeli casualties, Israeli deaths, and the deaths of Palestinian civilians. And as a result, as painful a reality as it is, Israel's in a situation where every couple of years, just like we had Operation Cast Lead recently, every couple of years, David, Israel's going to be in this exact situation. They're going to, basically pummel Hamas to the extent to which they can. Hamas, as you say, and I've heard many people say this, is very weak at the moment. And basically they're using this as an opportunity to somehow gain credibility again in the Arab-Palestinian world. But that ultimately they're going to fold. Israel and Hamas will come to some kind of ceasefire agreement. Both sides will get something. Hamas will say it's won. Israel will have quiet for a period of time. And David, maybe 2 years later, we have to do this all over again. That's the argument I'm hearing. And that the last thing Benjamin Netanyahu wants to do, or the Israeli cabinet wants to do, is suffer serious Israeli casualties and deaths. What's your sense?
We forget that Bibi is cornered. Bibi has no choice. Like you said, this has been going on for years. This is Israel going to lose the return effect. Israel cannot afford not to go in. Israel has to finish the job. I do not believe, I believe that Bibi is going to do the job. The Israeli troops on the borders are eager to go in. Those are young guys that are dying. They've been practicing for years and years. They're dying to go in. They're motivated. We have the best guys there. We have the equipment. We have everything we need. We have everything we need to take over Gaza in no time. Yes, we're going to have a casualty. There's no question about it. But the other choice is even worse. They're shooting missiles at Dimona, a nuclear power plant. I mean, this is not a joke. They're shooting missiles at Ben Gurion Airport. This is not a joke. This is not what it used to be. This is a game changer. And I feel that Bibi has no choice but to go ahead and finish the job.
Okay. Well, we will watch. It'll be interesting to see the extent to which your prediction comes true. I want to ask you now about the reaction you've seen, David, here on the American scene. How have you felt? How have you felt? Hold on. Let me just ask the question. How have you felt the American people have responded to this crisis, and how has it been reported from your perspective in the American media?
Assuming that Bibi is going to do the right thing, according to my understanding, I'm at peace with myself, knowing that this threat is going to be eliminated soon. But I'm so distressed to see the American media today deceiving the public. In history, we're going to look back at those years, and you're going to see how all the major organizations, from CNN to the New York Times to MSNBC, Washington Post, Boston Globe, Huffington Post, they're all competing with Al Jazeera. It is sickening. They're not giving the American public the true pictures of what's happening on the ground. They are so biased, and it's so deceiving that it's really not fair. I hope the American people are going to wake up one day and see this. They're not giving them the true picture on the ground. Thank God for Fox and all affiliated. They see the picture the way it is. Thank God to people like Megyn Kelly to give you the true picture. We have millions of Israelis in bomb shelters. They've been missiles raining on them day in and day out. Where is the media? They're telling us stories about how poor the Palestinians in Gaza. Go look at other Arab countries and see how they live. They live in misery. They're slaughtering them in Syria. They're slaughtering them in Iraq. And you worry about the condition in Gaza? Let them stop shooting missiles, and you see that Israel is not going to do anything. We have to react. And the media are so distorted, they refuse to see it. It's just sickening.
Well, we see things very similarly in this regard. I had a caller this afternoon who said to me, why is the media apparently so biased when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? David, what's your answer?
I just came back from a convention in Israel. It was a Jewish media convention in Israel.
Yes. And
it was very interesting. We discussed it. I think a lot of it has to do with anti-Semitism. A lot of it has to do with anti-Semitism. This is a very sophisticated way of projecting it. It's we're not anti-Semitic. We're just against Israel. Basically, it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. I believe the majority of it is anti-Semitism, and we see it in the media, the way you see it now.
One more question for you in this entire area. We just had Ken Bob on, and Ken was saying that he was hoping that the events that have transpired, especially as they relate to the dynamic between Fatah and Hamas, may move Abbas closer to the peace table. If you were talking to Ken Bob, what would you say to him about your view of the prospects for peace coming out of this entire mess?
I just came back from Israel and I spent some time in Tel Aviv. And I saw groups of Arab women with a veil. They don't speak English, groups of 5, 10 of them. And I went to speak to them. It was very interesting to see Arabs walking freely in Tel Aviv. And I presented myself and asked them, where are you from? They told me they're from the Negev. They're from the West Bank. And I asked them, what are you doing here? They're visiting Tel Aviv. And I said, wow, this is very interesting. Do you feel free? They say, yeah, we feel free. Nobody's bothering us. And I said, wow, this is really great. Why can't we have peace? And so on one hand, you know, you have this wishful thinking that, you know, you want to live with them, of course. On the other hand, you have those extremes that are out to kill Jews. They base it on Islam. And Islam doesn't let you live with Jews. According to Islam, you got to kill all the Jews, kill all the infidels. So I don't see how we're going to live with them. I'm very pessimistic when it comes to this.
I understand. I understand. All right, I want to change gears with you for just one moment. I'm sure you've been watching the entire flap with the Metropolitan Opera of New York and their plans to stage the death of Klinghoffer, which of course basically tries to sanitize the murder, the brutal, wanton murder of an American, 69 years old. They shot him in the head and forehead and chest, and threw him overboard the Achille Lauro. And the ADL has convinced the Met not to televise it worldwide, but the opera still is going to be staged in New York. I have spoken out against it, and I'm wondering, David, how you feel about the Metropolitan Opera's decision and what this says about, in essence, the standing of American Jewry in America today, that we can't stop the Metropolitan Opera, it seems, from staging such an absolutely vile, inappropriate opera. What are your thoughts?
You know, I'm glad you bring it up. This is really a hard issue in the Jewish community, and we've been working on it for the past 2 months. I had the pleasure of meeting Ed Oxman 2 weeks ago in Jerusalem, and we discussed it. And I confronted him, and I said, hey, what are you doing? You know, what kind of a deal are you doing with them? He said, David, we have to know when to draw the line. What I did was a great deal. They promised me they're not going to broadcast it, and it was a big thing. And I'm very happy with it. I said, Abe, you know, people like me don't accept it. It's not good enough. He promised me that we cannot stop them. I promised him, and we shook hands on it, that we are going to stop the opera from playing this opera. And we shook on it, and we bet on it. I promise you, we're going to do everything possible to stop the opera from playing it. And we have time, we have the resource, our people are organizing. You're going to hear a lot more about it. We promise ourselves to stop the opera from playing it. It's racist, it's anti-Semitic, and it has no place in America.
I could not agree with you more. I am thrilled that you will be part of the movement to stop it. David, you have done fabulous work for the Jewish community through the Jewish Voice. You've also been a very dear friend to me and to Shalom TV. I appreciate you enormously, and I thank you very much for giving us some time on Shalom TV today.
Thank you so much, and God bless you.
You be well. David Ben Hooren, publisher of the Jewish Voice. And my thanks for this edition of In the News to Ron Jacobson. Ron has done a fabulous job all week producing for Shalom TV. My thanks also to Sloan Copeland and Serge Goldberg, Dara Golub, and to everyone here at Shalom TV for all the work they do, making it possible for us to bring you as much coverage as we can right now of Israel in turmoil. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. Be well, my friends.